This House is supposed to govern for the people of Queensland. There is an executive who sits here, who brings a legislative agenda forward, who brings budgets forward, who tells the people of Queensland how they will govern. And the rest of this chamber's job is to hold them to account, to make sure that their legislation is robust, to make sure that the legislation has been looked at carefully, to make sure the legislation doesn't have any unintended consequences. And if we look at the amount of amendments, and if we look at the amount of times we've had to come back into this House and repeatedly fix up mistakes in the legislation that has had the guillotine brought down on it, we will see that restricting this House's analysis of a bill, restricting this House's analysis of the governance and the executive of this state causes problems. That's why these chambers exist. Now, I understand there's a ruling elite who sit over there who find it somewhat inconvenient that we won't go along with their arrogance and their dictatorship and their complete lack of interest in the people of Queensland's true desires, who don't like hearing the stories about the health crisis, who don't like hearing about their failures of governance, who don't like hearing about the times that the money has not been allocated and it's a fiction. I understand the ruling elite find that somewhat inconvenient, and it would be much easier for them to have this chamber's debates curtailed. It would be much easier for them to have this chamber silenced, because this is the only time they get held to account. Now, it's interesting, we will finish this week and we won't be back till September. We won't be back till September. The number of sitting weeks is down. The amount of time that we're sitting is down. The amount of scrutiny is down. The amount of legislation is down. The amount of arrogance is up. The amount of hubris is up. The ability of this government to tell everybody, look, just quietly sit in the corner and don't worry about your democratic rights. We're going to change how you vote. We'll do it at a drop of a hat. We won't bring any scrutiny. We'll bring in some legislation that's a bit dodgy and has got a few problems with it. But don't worry, we'll just bring some more amendments, or we'll rush through hundreds of amendments as the guillotine drops. They want on every occasion, they want to avoid scrutiny. On every occasion, they want to ensure that the people of Queensland don't really know what's going on. They want to make sure the people of Queensland just quietly get on with their lives so that a ruling elite can manipulate the system, can manipulate this parliament to get the outcomes that they see fit. Now, we know that they will use their numbers. They will use their numbers to change the rules in this place at the drop of a hat. They will use their numbers to change the way we vote at the drop of a hat. We know that they're for manipulating the system to perpetuate their elite status, where the main objective is nothing to do with governing for Queensland, nothing to do with looking after the people of Queensland. It is looking after themselves, looking after those people who look after them. I mean, who would think that you could apply for a job that you've not even looked at because someone else put your CV through it on a back channel? Who would think that you could get appointed to that position just like that? That is the arrogance of the ruling elite. They are there to serve themselves. And this chamber's job is to hold them to account. This chamber's job is to make sure that we're not manipulated. This chamber's job is to make sure that the executive of government is working hard for the people of Queensland. Now, the legislative agenda before us shows that they're not. The amount of sitting weeks shows that we're not. The guillotine shows that we're not. Now, the Fourth Estate should be concerned about this. But the Fourth Estate have nearly all been employed by the Premier's office over the last number of years. So even the Fourth Estate is not willing to hold them to account because they see that they can earn a bit more money getting a job in the Premier's office. Well, fortunately for us, there are some people in the gallery who are listening. There are some people in the gallery who are willing to do their jobs. We heard from one of them yesterday, and the Premier didn't like being held to account publicly. She didn't like it at all. That's what this chamber's for, to hold the government to account, to hold the executive account, to make sure they're true to their word, to make sure they keep their promises, and that's why we should oppose the motion.
Thank you, Member for Toowoomba North. Your time has expired.